Hey everybody, just want to share a quick little insight from our study general conference this morning. While I was working out of the gym, I was listening to the April 1932 general conference and J. Golden Kimball speaking. And he stands up and he's like, if you don't like how I speak, I recommend you take a nap. And I'm like, oh man, it's going to be this controversial talk. And it really wasn't, but he addressed something that I feel is actually super important. He shared a story that he said he had never shared before. And the story was that when he was a mission president in the southern states, he felt that they needed to hold a meeting in the city. And at the time, the anti-Mormon hostilities in the South were really, really bad. And they would beat up elders and do all sorts of abuse to them. And so he's like, we normally would avoid the cities because in the cities, the Protestant ministers would basically whip up the people into the most un-Christ-like mobs to attack the missionaries. But that he felt like they needed to do this fireside. And so he told the elders, arrange the fireside, I'll be the one to speak. And he mentions that when he shows up, that there was not a single woman in the crowd. And that it kind of freaked him out because generally when the men would assemble and the women would stay home, it was more or less an indicator that they were going to get violent. And he stands up and he's prepared to speak. He has his Bible and he mentioned the fact that that Bible has 40 years worth of notes in it and that it is his most prized possession. And he's about ready to expound the whole gospel through the Bible. And then he stops and says, none of you came here to listen to a sermon about the gospel of Jesus Christ. You came here because you wanted to know about polygamy and the Mountains Meadow Massacre. And then he proceeded to give them an entire fireside address on those two topics. And after the meeting, he turned to his elders and he goes, don't you ever give that sermon again. It will get you killed. And he didn't emphasize the point that he was prepared, but when he opened his mouth, the Lord filled it. And we need to be willing to allow that to happen. And that his goal in life is to be able to open his mouth and let the Holy Ghost fill it with the message that the people need to hear. And I think this is super important. We have a really pernicious false idea in the church. And that false idea comes from a tradition of Catholicism, which is preach the gospel always. If necessary, use words. That is not our doctrine. That is a false doctrine. Our doctrine is open your mouth and it will be filled. Like Nephi of old. That's what the Doctrine and Covenant says. It does not say preach the gospel through your example and if they ask you a question, then you can answer it. No, it says open your mouth. And J. Golden Kimball was illustrating that point. That we believe that we are to open our mouths and that the Holy Ghost will give us in the very moment what we should say. And I think that it's super important for us to realize that to be true member missionaries, we need to open our mouths. We cannot be preaching the gospel through our example alone anymore. That is a time gone past. We are been commanded to speak.